Chief Liz Logan is a Dene woman from the Fort Nelson First Nation. She has 15 years experience in politics, including being the chief of the Fort Nelson First Nation, and now in her current role as the Treaty8 tribal chief. She's been well recognized for her outstanding leadership over the years. And tonight she's going to share with us the story of Treaty8 and the impacts of gas extraction on her territory. So please join me in welcoming Chief Liz Logan.
As I said, I am Tribal Chief Liz Logan, and I was the chief of my nation for 8 years. I actually was elected to 6 terms, but I only chose to serve 4 because of some health problems, but I've stayed on as tribal chief. So I've done that for 9 years. So I speak on behalf of 5 nations that belong to the Tribal Association, and I'm going to be speaking about them. I'm going to be speaking a little about Treaty8, which is a numbered treaty. I am the great-granddaughter of a hereditary chief who signed our adhesion to Treaty number 8, and this is the medallion that was given to him by the King of England at the time. And so I can have you guys come and look at it. I am not to let it out of my hands. My father would tell me. It's the only one that is original that's around. I've gone to the Centennial in Alberta and met with all the chiefs in northern Alberta, Saskatchewan, Northwest Territory, and no one's ever seen an original. So it's priceless. So I'll talk a little bit about the challenges and the impacts and the changes that we're going through, and what the province comes to us all the time trying to do, and what we're hoping to get out of all of this in the end, which is a regional strategic environmental assessment. So again, these are the nations that I work for, the chiefs of Prophet River, Halfway River, Doig River, Soto, and West Moberly First Nations. And this is Treaty8 in Northeast British Columbia, and currently there are 8 Treaty8 First Nations, the original 7, and then McLeod Lake, who adhered just in the last few years, and they're down here. And this is my hometown in Fort Nelson here, and Prophet, Doig, Halfway, West Moberly, and Soto are the nations that belong to Treaty8 Tribal Association, and they work out of Fort St. John. The First Nations in the Northeast British Columbia have been around for over 10,000 years. The government is always saying, prove that you've been around. Well, this is our proof. The artifacts from Charlie Lake Caves, just north of Fort St. John, have been radiocarbon dated, and they've proved that the Denizal people have been there for over 10,000 years. Not just artifacts, but they found mandibles, etc. So, again, back to Treaty number 8. Signed originally in Alberta in 1899 and finalized with the BC First Nations in the early 1900s. It was one of the most comprehensive treaties in Canada. The elders have always said through oral history that the spirit and intent of this treaty was to share, coexist, and to be at peace with our neighbors. It is not a cede and surrender document, as we continue to hear from these governments. This is always, we always laugh and say this is the $1 million court case that we can't afford right now. But just to give you an idea, the treaties, the numbers of treaties across Canada, this is them, there's 11 of them across Canada. Treaty number 8 is right here. Covers Northeast British Columbia, almost a third of the province, Northern Alberta, a little piece of Northwest Saskatchewan, and a little piece of the Northwest Territories below Slave Lake. The area is very large, one of the largest treaty, as I said, so 840,000 square kilometers. When my great-grandfather signed this treaty, they signed it with the understanding that for as long as the sun shone, the grass grew, and the rivers flowed, that my people could continue their way of life. They could be the people of the land as if there was no treaty. Well, with all of the air emissions, the rivers being dammed in our areas, and all of the pollutants out in the land, this promise we feel is going to be broken, as well as the other ones. oil and gas progression over the years. The first well was drilled in 1942 in the Peace Block. And at the end of, the middle of 2013, we had almost 29,000 wells. And that's mostly conventional wells, and a few of them are oil wells. The oil is a lot just around the Peace Block here, but the rest is all conventional. But we think it's close to 32,000 wells because they're not taking into account the dry wells or the abandoned wells in this number. And along with those abandoned dry wells comes the impacts, because they had to clear, they had to seismic, they had to build roads in there. And so I always raise that, and they don't like that because the numbers look higher, right? So, yes, this is all Treaty 8 territory, and I've had somebody say, well, you have the rest of this area that's not impacted. Well, that's all mountain. But that is also called the Muskoka-Chika. This government is changing the rules of what the Muskoka-Chika is all about. They've just appointed 5 industry reps to the Muskoka-Chika board. So guess what? They're going to try and get into the Muskoka-Chika now. It's supposed to be preserved. It's supposed to be the Serengeti of the North. Well, it's not going to be very much longer. And so the Treaty 8 nations that sat on that board got disgusted and left the board, and we have now taken it upon ourselves, and we're asserting ourselves, and we're setting up our own management board for the Muskoka-Chika. In the past, they only drilled in the winter because up in that neck of the woods was all muskeg, and they couldn't get in the summer. And they used to just drill straight down. Well, now they do a lot of horizontal drilling, which I'll get into in next slides. But this is how they get into the muskeg now, all year round. They make these wooden mats, and they build boardwalks. They've just built highways. They put them on their lease pads that they put the rigs and facilities on. So it's now all year round activity up there. This is just a typical drilling rig on a single pad, and this is a small pad. And this is an example of what they used to do in conventional drilling. Now we're getting into fracking. Tens of thousands of liters of diesel fuel is used for every frack, and in some cases 1,000 truckloads of water plus fracking fluids is needed to complete one job. Multiple fracks are needed in some cases to stimulate the formation. And we don't have the right kind of sand in that area, so they have to bring it up, and they usually bring it up from the States. This is adjacent to a frack site, but I just want to show you this for the number of trucks. I think we counted 23 trucks on just this one piece of a lease lot. And there are compressor trucks, there's storage tanks, there's water trucks, and then the big cranes and holding tanks here. This is just a good rendition of what fracking is. Basically, natural gas is flowing in the freezers, so they bring down sand and fluids, and the sand basically goes in and fractures the shale, and it stays in there and it holds the crack open so that it releases the gas. This is just another example to show you the concern that the cement casings that they use, they've been known to crack and leak not just the gas, but the chemicals that they use. And that's the other thing, we don't know what the chemicals use. They say, we'll tell you, but we don't know what the chemicals are. And a lot of people are really concerned about the cracks that they create are already spreading to existing cracks, which are then leaching the chemicals into the groundwater and into surface water. So there's lots of controversy over water in our territory, because this province has no legislation, nothing around water. They don't regulate it at all. So again, ground and surface water contamination is a major concern, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The fracking fluids are all toxic, and we don't know exactly what's in there. We know that there's a lot of carcinogens. Waste fluids that they bring back up is usually re-injected back into wells, or it's trucked away into another site. We have had over 30 earthquakes, they be small, but we've never had them before in the last decade, and now we've had 30. And everybody feels that it's because of the fracking, but they all deny it. So we're really concerned about the water and soil contamination. The oil spills. One of our nations, Doig River, has oil in their territory. And PJ, it's called a PJ site. They have all these names for all these different areas on the land. And it's 16 hectares, and it's been over 10 years. And it took Doig's members, leadership, and elders complaining to industry, complaining to the Oil and Gas Commission, complaining to government to do something about it, and they were reluctant to do anything about it. So Doig took it upon themselves to go to CTV and brought a camera crew up there, and they end up doing a story on the PJ spill, and it's called Black Blood. The impacts to the caribou, especially in that area, are very, very high, because we have pictures of caribou coming in there because the hydrocarbons have a high saline content that creates a man-made mineral lick that attracts the animals to it. So they eat the soils and they drink the fluids. So, concerned about the animal health that my people still eat, and the toxic emissions. BC still allows flaring and burning off of the gas. Alberta doesn't. So this is another issue that we're pushing this government on. This is what our people are finding. This is the moose liver. We're finding moose, beaver, rabbits, even sometimes chickens, that when they open them up, they smell foul, they have abscesses all over their major organs. And when we show this to industry and to government, and they say, how can you prove that that came from the oil and gas industry? And so it forced two of our nations, West Mobley and Soda, to take a small portion of an area and hired a qualified biologist to come in and do a study. And they looked at 16 sites, and 12 of those, so 75% of the sites that they visited were contaminated. They exceeded the provincial and the federal standards. And they had these motion sensor cameras out there for 24/7 and captured all kinds of animals coming in and drinking at these flare pits, sump pits that are not fenced off. We went to one of the oil and gas conferences that was held in the Northeast, where all of the Alberta presidents and CEOs come, and they talk about what a great job they're doing in Northeast British Columbia and how much gas there is and how much they used. And so we asked to be on the agenda, and they let us. And all the chiefs and the elders got up on stage and said, by the way, we want to share something with you. And so we had the biologists come up and do the presentation, and it was complete silence in the room. Everybody just sat there. And so we presented to government. We sent off a letter with all the recommendations that we wanted them to do, simple things like putting a hard structure, fencing around these pits so animals can't get into it, and government did some of it, but not all of it. It's, I don't know, we're in a petro state here. I mean, they cater to industry like you wouldn't believe, they'll go and they'll encourage the company to build, a good fence, but they don't insist that they do. There's no rule and regulation that they have to have a good sturdy fence around these pits. So, this government is just doing everything in its power to make everything go smoothly, taking away the oversight for Site C from the BC Utilities Commission, not having the EA hearings south of Prince George, not letting other British Columbians, the Lower Mainland, have a say in what goes on up in the north that's affecting us. We have the biggest gas plants, we have the biggest OSB plants, and we have the biggest dam. Something that we're not proud of because it affects the environment, the land, so the meeting with the Premier is to talk about our treaty and how the LNG is impacting that, our land, our water, our air, our animals, and our future.